I understand Netflix is trying to avoid churn by splitting up their popular series seasons into 2 parts. So you get really hooked into that first part and then stay subscribe to Netflix because the next part is only coming in a couple weeks. I think that where it helped Stranger Things, it helped Ozark, it helped other series, it was a detriment to You Season 4. I'm going to break that down and more in my review of both parts of You Season 4. Let's start off with the good. You Season 4 Part 1 starts the series off in a very significant departure from the first 3 seasons. Joe is now in the UK with a new identity, a new look, and he's teaching at a college. He's living a quiet, secluded life other than going to that college and teaching after surviving Love Quinn. And for someone who secretly roots for Joe throughout the series, even though he's proven to be not such a great person, it was really satisfying to see him live a more positive life and try to do something well with the abundance of knowledge that he has. But all that quiet, all that safety, all that non-drama goes down the drain when he gets tied up in a mess with some high elite people, which is very surprising because throughout the series, they've had multiple moments of commentary disparaging people with wealth who are of high society. So to see him get mixed in that and for them to kind of like accept him in it was really off-putting. But when we realize that these people are starting to be murdered and Joe is deciding to help them figure out who's targeting them, the Eat the Rich killer, they were calling the killer. I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of made me understand why he's mixing himself in, because he feels like he needs to be close with these terrible, annoying people in order to find out who's doing it. I was fascinated by this creative choice because I always thought throughout the series that Joe was someone that could be a great PI or someone on law enforcement because of his skills that he's used to show him stalking people. I thought and his getting knowledge and a one-up on people throughout the first 3 seasons. I thought that would be really good as a PI. So him turning into like a de facto Sherlock Holmes was excellent, and it was brought even up to a greater height when we find out the killer is texting him and know who his real identity is. So as a viewer, we're on this new journey with Joe as he's becoming, getting involved in this murder mystery, this journey of him trying to solve who the murderer is while his past is still haunting him, which is well deserved since he's done such terrible things. He can't just wipe that away from him. So it's a mix of the things that we know plus something new. And while the mystery itself was decent, the way it was being put together and I'm trying to figure out who in his past could be doing this to him, and he's like being involved and getting into all the drama of all these different high elite characters that were really, really, really annoying and proved his point throughout the years. People Joe probably would have killed if he was season 1 Joe, but what the show really did was they made you point the finger at so many different people, but the person, for me specifically, I've seen some people said they figured out the killer from the beginning. I did not at all figure it out that it was Reese Montrose, the one guy that was nice to Joe and wasn't really around that much in terms of getting into the mixture and stuff and had alibis. I thought that was really interesting. And the way Reese is portrayed, he is cunning, he's witty, and he has a murderous past like Joe. And he seems like he's one step ahead of him at all times because he has more resources than Joe has. So it was really interesting to see how Joe overcomes someone that's so similar to him, but also a lot more powerful, because this guy, even after Joe finds out and he wants Joe to join him in killing the rich, he's running for mayor. So it's just really hard for Joe to figure out how is he going to get him alone? How is he going to get him alone in a space that he doesn't get caught trying to kill him? And how is he going to avoid getting mixed up with all the other stuff that's going on with the other wealthy people that's involved in this? And out of all those people, Lady Phoebe was my favorite new supporting character. She was sweet, charming, kind, but also very spoiled. Obviously, she's one of the rich elites, so she's not perfect. And I thought she had really great chemistry with Penn Badgley, and I would wish that she had a chance to be his love interest in this season, because I thought that they had really great chemistry compared to who they were portraying as his love interest. Starting off slow and, feeling really different and murky compared to the past seasons. It ended off strong with part 1. I said season 1, I meant part 1. Switching over to part 2, I think that everything improved. The character development, the pacing, the excitement. They brought back some of the things that we love from the first 3 seasons back into this, and then the murder mystery now is unveiled, and the fallout from it is really, really interesting. All the characters that were in the high elite that was in the part 1 that I thought were annoying and caricatures and people that I couldn't stand got to be developed a little bit more in this season, especially his love interest, who At first I did not like at all, but then I started liking her more, finding out the problems that she was having in her life and why she was acting the way she was acting. And what the great thing was is that, Joe finally gets a chance to be alone with Reese Montrose, and he's trying to, torture him into stopping what he's doing, but he gets so frustrated and he, in a bitter rage, murders him. And this is where the season turns to a point where this is maybe one of the best twists, one of the best things that this show has done so far. Because after he murders Riz Montrose in cold blood, out comes another Riz Montrose out of the shadows. In my head, I was like, what is going on? Is this a face swap? Is this a twin? Is this guy from the future? Are we going sci-fi with the show? No. We find out that the whole thing was being in Joe's head. He had a psychotic break and he was the killer this whole time. Reese Montrose did not know who he was, and they played that off really well when he finally came face to face with the real Riz, because Riz was like, who are you? I don't know who you are, and couldn't answer any things that he wanted answered. And we find out that Joe created this version of Reese Montrose to be his darker self, trying to push away his darker self, that one that has those rages and wants to stalk people, wants to kill people, and kind of put it on that person. And it was just really fascinating to see that, because throughout the whole series, Joe has always tried to say, like, he's not this person, he's not this person. He's always tried to find ways to push that side away from him. And because of circumstances of him trying to please people and not know how to do it properly, he always goes back to it. But I think that because he pushed it so far back this time, trying to live a different life completely in a different country, he just completely broke and became like a person with multiple personality disorder. And I thought that they executed it excellently. Once we find this out, we get a 3-episode stretch of just fantastic TV. Marianne was in part 1 for a small amount of time. We see Joe find her. She runs away, tells him to leave her alone, and he does. And that was it. And I thought that was really interesting, because I was like, okay, she was a big part of season 3. I thought she was going to be a big part of season 4. And obviously, I just want to see Tati Gabrielle on my screen. She's fun as hell. And I thought it was weird that she's just gone. But then what they do here is that you find out that he didn't just let her go. He did kidnap her. He put her in one of his cages. And this whole time, she was locked down there. And he is not even Joe anymore. He's just this other entity, because his personality is just all over sorts. And we get to see everything from Marianne's point of view. What he was doing all this time, kidnapping her, from leaving her in the house, trying to force her to love him. And then when things are not going his way, her moving her to the cage, and hit when the split personality happens and everything. And I thought all that was executed really great. Any other show, this could have been really cheesy or buffoonery or something like that, but I think they did it really well with a fine line of not going too CW dramatic or going too serious, where it's taking the show itself too seriously. And I think Tati Gabrielle did a great job showing the despair that she was going through, how she felt like she was starting to go through like a psychotic break, and us getting a full view of where Joe is at now because of everything he did to her. And also part is another new character in the show, but she was used sparingly through part 1 and was a lot more part 2 is one of his students named Nadia, who's kind of like, it felt like she was flirting with him a little bit in the season, but she was just interested in his knowledge and things like that, because he is a smart teacher and he was actually a good teacher. And she starts figuring out something's off about him, and she finds Marianne, and that raises the stakes even more, trying to figure out how she's going to get Marianne out. And Joe not knowing what is going on, he's so focused on Kate, trying to figure out what's going on with him, that he makes a mistake and almost kills Marianne. And this creates one of the best moments of the show, where he becomes tortured in his own mind, and he starts seeing the people that he's killed before, and they're just talking so much crap to him. We get Guinevere back from the first season. We get back Love, which was crazy. I didn't expect to see it in this, and everything that they did with that sequence of him hallucinating and seeing all his past loved ones that he's killed was fantastic, and really put everything in perspective and push him towards almost the ending of the show, where he decides that he shouldn't be alive anymore, that he's been trying so hard, fighting so hard to stay alive, and he's hurting other people that he loves, and he thinks he just needs to unalive himself, which he attempts to do. This leads to the most beautiful and disturbing thing of the season yet. Kate, who I didn't like in part 1 because of how they portrayed her, but in part 2 they really reveal all her backstory, her terrible father, and everything that's going on with her. falls for Joe in the way he is, Jonathan. That's his name in the UK and the identity he's going after. She falls for him there, and he really helps her get confidence in herself. And after he tries to unalive himself, she comes to his hospital bed because he got saved, and he reveals everything to her. And this is the moment where I'm like, okay, this whole time I was like, he should just tell her. I just had a feeling that this person would be the one to accept him for who he was because of her own past. And bingo, yet not only does she accept him for who she is, she's willing to cover up what he's going to do, what he did in the past, and what he's going to do moving forward because she loves him so much, and how he makes her a better self. It was just so crazy how you find somebody that's kind of as psychotic as him, but still feels normal, because that's all he wants. He wants somebody that accepts him for his psychotic part, but is normal. He not like Love Quinn, who also wants to just kill people all the time. I thought that was a very, very interesting development, and brought Joe to like a level where I was like, now I'm disgusted with him. I can't root for him no more. He got to go. See, like with Joe, he's always been a kind of slimy guy in one half, but also this very noble person on another. So it was kind of like this thing where I was like, I like him, I want to root for him, and I know a lot of fans root for him as well, even though he's this terrible, almost kind of serial killer kind of guy. But I think that he finally showed his true self this season, and it left off in a way with the cliffhanger where I think that we can fully be behind him being a monster. And I think I'm excited for them to do another season to see him get taken down finally, because I think he's at the point of no return where he can't get help because he has somebody backing him through everything he's going to do moving forward. And he fully accepts all parts of him. So he thinks the murdering is okay now. So I'm excited to see how the show moving forward. Now let's get into the bad. So while I think that part 2 is damn near perfect in every way, and the way they executed it, I know a lot of people who are not watching part 2 because part 1 happened first, and a lot of it was such a departure from what we know, and very slow, and just it felt very different from the show that we know and love, and it just kind of turned off a lot of people, and it almost turned me off myself. Part 1 was just not strong enough to carry a season of a show, and for us to be separated and go like, okay, we can wait a couple weeks for part 2 to see where it was where the story gets complete. Because what they were asking us to do by just watching those first 5 episodes was to accept Joe's changes in his personality, him becoming kind of like this person that's trying to solve murders, mingling with people who he would never mingle with before in the past previous seasons, and trying to feel bad for people who are not likable. That's the thing. It was like most of these people, most of the rich people, most of these supporting cast was just not likable people other than Lady Phoebe for me personally. So it was hard for me to care that Joe was trying to protect them, even for Kate, who was his love interest, because I didn't think she was super likable at first. So for them to do that and then leave us off at that point and then tell us to wait later, it kind of was like a bit of a turnoff. And I think that was the mistake that Netflix made by separating these 2 parts of the season and not putting all 10 episodes together. I think if you get to binge it and watch it straight through and get more into the reveals, everything before makes sense, because when you get into part 2, it redeems itself when you realize he's not mingling with these people because he likes them or trying to protect them. He's actually killing them. He is the killer. So he was really just battling with himself, which is super psychotic and I think super original. I haven't really seen anything like that before in a TV show. So I think that as a whole, it's executed really well, but the part 1 by itself, and for us to wait a couple weeks, was not executed well in a way that it was like, oh, I need to wait and see what happens in the next part, because you think it's just going to be more of the same. Both part 1 and part 2 of season 4 of You may be the best season of the show yet. When you put them together, you need elements from part 1 to make the part 2 that happens incredible. You can't have one without the other. But still, I think Netflix's anti-churn method almost ruined one of their best shows. But I'm glad that I stuck with it, and I think if you're a fan of this series, that you should definitely stick with it if you have not, and check it out in full. I think that they did some really interesting things here where they switched up the flow and the process of the show, because it could have felt really repetitive, and I think that they knocked it out of the park. I just think that Netflix separated it up into 2 parts almost made it really bad. So with that said, I'm going to give You season 4 in total, part 1, part 2 together, a B+. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate You season 4 in total. Let's not separate the parts. Drop all those comments down below. Let me know what your favorite moments were, your favorite characters, what your least favorite moments are. Like the video if you liked my review. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of my reviews, reactions, ranking lists, live discussions, and more. You can catch more of my content right now.